boundaries are such a crucial way for us to assert our own values and our own principles and limit ourselves in terms of what we are or are not willing to invest our time in and our resources in. And it comes at the fundamental premise of putting ourselves first and protecting ourselves, selectively and consciously choosing where we want to help and where we want to invest our resources in. And one of the hallmarks of the so-called people pleaser is that they do not have those boundaries in place, or they're not in place at the level they should be, because they find themselves saying yes all the time and not saying no enough. And no, you kind of learn in society is a bad word. You should always help out. You shouldn't be so selfish. But actually, it's coming at a cost to your own mental health and your self-esteem. And self-esteem, you can't see it. You can't even really feel it as a tangible thing, as a physical thing that you can point to. But let me say that without boundaries over time, you will debit. You are paying a tax from this self-esteem that you carry. And you will end up only sabotaging your own ability to relate with others and relate with yourself. And you are sapping your energy because you are not saying no at the appropriate times. And one of the ways in which you can start to understand how to set yourself boundaries is to figure out what your non-negotiables are. And this is what this video is going to focus on. And I'm going to share with you in this video an exercise that you can use to help you figure out what your non-negotiables are. What do I have in my life that I am willing to tolerate? And what is there in my life that I am not willing to tolerate? And so by consciously thinking about it through this exercise I'm about to share in this video, you are able to understand better about where you stand in terms of your principles and your desires on each of those activities and situations you find yourself in. Where do you find yourself saying yes to things? And where do you or should you find yourself saying, actually, no, I'm not willing to tolerate this, or I'm only willing to do this if these conditions are met? I know that we can often find ourselves in conflicts and in arguments with our partners or with friends, and the same arguments tend to repeat themselves, and you kind of might look back and be like, oh, this conversation happened again, or I didn't say the right thing, or oh, I said yes and agreed to do this thing and help them when I didn't want to. Why did I say yes to that? This list is going to put everything on paper in front of you, and then you can see exactly where you stand on each of these things. So I'm going to share this with you now. So you can see I've created a very simple table here. I'm just going to briefly walk you through what this looks like and what this exercise looks like. Again, this is intended to support you in asserting your boundaries in your relationships and better understanding what you are willing to tolerate and what things that you may potentially want to negotiate on or not negotiate on at all. So I've just put here for kind of simple purposes, we have activities like housework, might be conflicts with your partner if you have arguments with them, and your own time and family time. Now you can add any activity that you would find this exercise useful for and break it down into quite detailed activities if that helps, because the whole purpose of this exercise is to support you in understanding what you are willing to tolerate and what you're not. And it's especially useful for when you're struggling in different aspects of your life to really either assert your boundary or even understand what is it that I really want. So let's walk you through the first one of housework. Now, the column here is on what your tolerance or priority level is. So, for example, housework, you might have a very low tolerance to do that on the weekdays when you finished work, but on the weekends you have a bit more tolerance, and it's a bit more of a priority to do, and you're happy to do that. So you agree an action based on your tolerance level. So I agree to clean up after myself on weekdays, and that might be the maximum you're willing to do. So let's say you come home from work, you make yourself dinner, you'd probably be willing to clean the dishes and clean the pans that you cooked with, and then that's it. That you don't want to do anything more. And then maybe when it comes to the weekends where you're a bit more relaxed, you can do a bit more tasks. Now, it might be that you don't want to do anything. You don't want to do any housework, regardless of how stressed or not stressed you are. That's just something you're not willing to do for whatever reason. You can put that down, and then it's always useful to examine everything you've put down. So in this case, you understand currently what your tolerance level is for housework. So you're not very tolerant and able to do it on the weekdays, but you're a bit more tolerant on weekends. And so based on that, you agree that you'll do a bit of extra tasks on the weekends, depending on how you're feeling, and then examine it. Really imagine yourself doing that. Is that fair? Is that what you really want? It might be that's not what you want at all. You might look at that and be like, actually, you know what? I don't even want to clean up after myself on weekdays. I just want to rely on my partner to do that, or ask if my partner can do that for me, just because I know I'm going to be so tired and drained after work. I don't want to do anything. I just want to zone out and relax. Or it might be that you find it relaxing to do housework, and it's a bit of a chance for you to get up, move around, kind of zone out and escape. Because even washing dishes, you can turn it into a meditation activity. So it really depends on what you want. So on everything, all the actions you make, just examine that closely. So if we move to conflicts with a partner, in this case, I've put that the tolerance is low, which means I cannot tolerate having an argument with my partner or any disagreement, because I know in the past when I've done that, it just hasn't gone well. We've ended up really having a big falling out. We haven't spoken to each other. So here I put the tolerance is low, but there are certain conditions that need to be met in order for that tolerance to go higher. So in this case, I've said, I need us to respect each other when we share our feelings by listening and reflecting what each of us have said, repeating back what the other person said so they are not misunderstood. And it also shows that you've been listened to and that there's no judgments or criticism. So as long as we can establish these rules, then I'm more tolerant in being able to have a conversation with you, and even a disagreement, as long as it's mutually respectful. So again, you're understanding what your current tolerance level is, but you've thought about, okay, how can I increase that tolerance level? Because if you're in a partnership, you're going to have conflicts and arguments. It's understandable. Is almost inevitable. And so at least if we're going to have arguments, let's do it in a respectful way and agree to some terms. And so this is what I've shared here. The other couple I've put here is for personal time and family time. So it might be after work, you need your personal time. After work, I said here, I need my own space to reset and lower my stress. But on the weekends, I'm a bit more relaxed anyway, so the personal time is not as urgent or is not as high a priority. And for family time, it's almost reverse. So I love spending time with my family, but I've got limited energy after work, so I prefer to fully engage on the weekends. So there might be things in terms of family activities that you're willing to do in the weekends, more so than in the weekday after work, where you're quite tired. Again, this is a very simple exercise, but it's a very effective way of listing down all the activities where you feel you might struggle to assert your boundary. You may find it difficult to understand what it is you fully want or what you're fully tolerant of. Put your tolerance level as it is, and then think about what that looks like in practice. So this is where the action column comes in. And maybe also examine that action column and think about, how can I increase my tolerance? So let's say, my partner really wants us to have family time on the weekdays, and this is something that I struggle with because I have limited energy. So how can I examine that, and what can I do to help myself have more tolerance and make it more of a priority? So it might be that you need to take even longer personal time before you do that. It might be you need to start scaling back at work. Whatever it takes to help you understand where you can or cannot meet your partner's request and where your tolerance level ends. So doing this exercise is a really useful way of establishing your tolerance level. So that exercise is going to help you not just in your relationships, but in other aspects of your personal life. The more you can understand where your boundaries are and where your tolerance level is, you'll be better equipped to be able to enforce those boundaries. Even if it's not respected by the other person, at least you know where you stand, and that that person not accepting it is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to know, what am I willing to tolerate? What conditions need to be met in my life in order for me to either do something or not do something? And that's what I'm going to stand with. And as long as I communicate that consistently, that's my responsibility to clearly communicate that. And I'll be sharing a future video on exactly how you can communicate with your partner in times of conflict, where you'll be able to respect each other, hear each other out, and that will minimize the chances of you miscommunicating with each other. So stay around for that video. Please subscribe, like this video, and comment below if you found this exercise useful. Thanks for watching.